All right, so once again, here's a behind the scenes breakdown of the techniques and equipment we use to get these shots, these shots, this shot, and how I did a bunch of shooting and editing to ultimately have this shot miss the mark and fail completely. But that's part of the process. As I pointed out in the part 1 video of no budget filmmaking, which I'll link below and we'll link at the end of this video, none of these shots are like groundbreaking, award-winning cinematography. They are, however, once again, no budget, light and mobile crew, creative experimentation, proof of concept, resourceful filmmaking. That's what I enjoy doing. They're for a concept trailer for our next short film. Not even the trailer, just a concept trailer. So yeah, throw shit at the wall, see what sticks, throw away the rest, polish the good stuff up later. All right, I'm gonna do these out of order, but first things first, Goodfellas.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
I would be remiss if I didn't admit that was the inspiration here. It's also a logical continuation of the driving shots. Once the driving shots were done, park the car and let's get some take the body out of the trunk shots, or in this case, the shovel. Actually, we just saw the shovel hanging up and said, grab that, we'll use it as a prop. As far as lighting, you guessed it, one single light. A Nanlite Pavo tube around 60 to 70% intensity with the red dialed in to match the parking or brake lights. Tube light and shovel. Good. That's it. That's the shot. That's it. I climbed in the back to get the victim perspective, even though the implication is there is no body in the trunk yet, just a shovel. All right, then look left and right. And then while we were there, we just grabbed a couple different compositions. Stupidly simple. Sure, I would have liked to pump haze into the scene and film this in the absolute middle of the woods, but for now, it worked. I shot these on a mix of my FX3 and A7 IV, which is always such a great combo because you have dual native ISOs on both of those cameras of 640, 800, 3200, and 12800. So there are so many clean ISOs you can use as checkpoints along the way. The lenses used for these shots were either the 24-70 G Master version 1, which I also just recently sold and upgraded to the version 2, and a Tamron 20-40 millimeter wide angle at 20 millimeters, which was more than wide enough for the victim perspective in the trunk. Next, the driving shots. And this is absolutely the epitome of low or no budget filmmaking. I suppose if you wanted to A, keep your budget as low as is humanly possible, and B, had to get a car shot, then sure, this is an option. But quite frankly, it's a piece of shit. I would 100% not recommend buying this. You can see the conundrum we're in here. Low budget, no budget filmmaking, but also you get what you pay for. I think it's been used 6 or 7 times max. Many of the connections between the screws and plastic handles are stripping. Both tension belts, interior mechanisms have completely cracked and fallen apart, so they're pretty much useless now. Luckily, the suction cups actually work really well, and the base plate for the camera or tripod head is really well made and sturdy. So again, to really lean into this title of the video, low or no budget filmmaking, if I had to mount a camera on a car today, I'd either spend the $175 on this cheap one, which I don't recommend, knowing that I might get 10 uses out of it before its reliability is questionable at best, or spend $350 on a used but good as new small rig one, which is here on the B&H site. I mean, I'd have to look into other car mounts, but this seems on the surface like a viable option. All right, actually, I take that back. There's terrible reviews on a lot of these rigs, like the 175 one that I used, or like some of the $300 and $400 and $500 ones. That said, I do think there's a little bit of like misguided kind of expectations from people, like complaining about, you know, vibrations. Like there's vibration in the shots. Like I don't think the vibration ruined any of my shots, but yeah, I have no guidance on, you know, what gear to buy. I just think you get what you pay for. You'd have to do your own research. I'm sure there's some decent options out there, but yeah, anytime you're spending hundreds of dollars, like, I don't know, there's a lot of cheaply made crap out there. So I'm not giving advice on what car rig to buy. The one I used worked, but
that's that.
I suppose you could ask around in videography, filmmaking, Facebook groups too. That might be the best low budget option. Find someone that has a good one, rent it for the day for a couple bucks. But yeah, all in all, it worked for next to nothing to be able to get all of these car shots. As far as the shot itself, FX3, stabilization on standard, not active, manually focused using focus magnification, second native ISO at 12,800, and the lens is a Tamron 24mm wide angle, obviously at 20 millimeters. It's a small light lens that gets the job done for what we're doing right now. I think it's $700 new, and I got it for like $600 in like new condition a while back. Low budget for sure. Also, for that manual focus, we kind of knew that it wouldn't be perfectly in focus the entire time if he was moving while driving. So the cue was to just keep his head in a kind of zone. And if it drifted a little forwards or backwards, not the end of the world. The focus would be good for 90% of the shot. Now we did tape a little aperture cube light onto the dash here and match that color to that kind of teal you see in a lot of cars on the speedometer and RPM and all that. In hindsight, it was definitely way too hot in terms of intensity and saturation, plus the angle. The steering wheel blocks some of that light too, so it doesn't feel even or natural. All in all, it's not the worst thing in the world. Actually, I look at it like a huge win because all of these little things we missed and don't like, we can just correct on later shoots, if the car rig holds up until then. Also, you can get away with shooting into the car at night and actually seeing the driver without a polarizer. I think it's a polarizer you need, because it's obviously lighter in the car than outside if you can light it even a little bit. Now for this next shot, I took some of those lessons from the last driving shots and tried to build on them. First and foremost, I wanted to shoot in the state park around sunset to see how that looked. I also wanted to shoot it from a different angle, just to create a different feeling. Same gears before, FX3, Tamron 20-40, and I tried stabilization both off and on standard for 2 different takes. I didn't really notice that much of a difference, to be honest, but it felt like standard stabilization was better for sure. And obviously again, manual focus, which I set before driving, in this case using touch focus. I actually wouldn't mind trying this again, focusing out ahead of the car, not to infinity, but just 50 to 100 feet out to focus on the trees or something. The last driving shot was this one, and I would 100% not recommend doing this because not only are you relying on a cheap car mount to hold your camera, but it's obviously fighting gravity too, hanging off the side of the car and whatnot. Mounted on the hood of the car, sure, but dangling off in space, yikes. Camera-wise, all of these shots were filmed on the FX3, and I used the Tamron 20-40mm wide angle at 20 millimeters. Once again, I didn't use a monitor, obviously, to keep the weight light, but for the first time ever, I actually used focus peaking on the back of the LCD, and it worked great. I just focused in the middle of the wheel. I'm primarily autofocusing for run and gun type stuff, and when I manually pull focus, I use a monitor. But yeah, it worked well in this case. All in all, these driving shots were fun to play around with, and I have so many more ideas with them too, different compositions and such. But again, truthfully, I don't entirely trust the cheap Amazon rig. It's nerve-wracking having an FX3 just floating out there and constantly checking in your rear view or seeing it on the hood and not paying attention to the road. If I ever invest in a heavy-duty car mount, then I'll play with some new compositions. So for this shot, the theme of the film so far has to do with a maze, or a labyrinth more accurately. And I had this idea, I said if we can shoot top down with the drone onto green grass, turf, whatever, the problem, and I did know this was gonna be a problem, I wasn't being naive, was shadows. We shot it later in the day, quite frankly, probably close to golden hour, so I knew there'd be long shadows. And even when I key those out, using a mask or whatever else, it still just feels unnatural. I actually like the wide shot of the little labyrinth puzzle itself with the key, library checkout things and the little arborvitae, greenery in there. I think that looks cool, but it just, without the proper shadows, without the proper blending, it just kind of felt like a miss. I think there's good intention there, and I think there's promise there, and maybe I'll try it again and try to dial it in more. And I bet a really good VFX artist could clean this up. It was, after all, shot on a 4K drone. I think it could be cleaned up a lot, but for now, it's a miss, but it's not the end of the world. And we still might even use some of these just basic top-down shots on the green, on the turf, but without masking anything behind them. So we'll see. So that leads to an overarching point here. In terms of my ideas for different shots, hell, for different stories and short films, I mean, I have so many creative ideas every day, and I'm pretty sure 99% of them are not good. But the problem is, if I give myself enough time to think about any of these ideas, even the seemingly good ones, long enough without acting on them, I can convince myself that they are all crap ideas. But that's how these shots for a concept trailer or an eventual film materialize for me. One idea out of 100 I act on, but I have to act quickly on it before I convince myself it's crap. I guess I'll end with yet another elephant in the room, which is the concept of low or no budget filmmaking when you do have an FX3, an A7 IV, or now the A7R5, 10 grand or so in lenses, another couple thousand in lights, etc. and so on. Like, to the beginner, this is the opposite of low budget. But I also realize in terms of actual films, yeah, Hollywood or even small indie films, this is the epitome of low budget. Just a couple people out there shooting shit with a light and a mobile crew, making it up as you go along, no set decorator or art department or dedicated DP or gaffers or grips or directors. We all wear every hat. And honestly, I love that. Not entirely because it's a control or ego issue, although I'm sure there is some subconscious component of that, but more so because it's a way to get back to our roots. It's a continuation of going out into the woods and making films on our dad's camcorder as kids. I mean, would I like to wear a headset and be with a crew and work with a team of people who are all talented at their specific role within the filmmaking process? Sure, maybe. Maybe not though, I don't know. Would I like to have dedicated locations scouted and rented and not have to worry about finding the next stolen location or getting yelled at in a public place? For sure. But for now, the DIY approach feeds my soul. It feels right, it's fun, and it helps me not to take myself too seriously. And I don't have any money to pay a crew or talent anyways, so this is all low and no budget filmmaking epitomized. And to get to those places, those points in my professional and creative career where I am legitimately making better short narrative films, documentaries interest me a lot, but they're kind of a different topic for now. But yeah, short or feature-length narrative films, I feel like I need to pay my dues now, creatively that is, on my own dime and my own time. Lean into the limitations, work light and mobile and quick, get a portfolio piece or two for the demo reel, show what I can do with little, with less. I don't know. That's all I got. Peace.